That's insane.
All right.
Hey!
I'm ready to go live on the internet. The chat logs are flying past. Everyone's pogging out of their minds. It's time to hit it. So I'll introduce this one. Hey, everyone. This is a special episode of Talk to the Internet in which we're going to be interviewing / just hanging out with a bunch of really talented and interesting people across the different facets of the internet. Today, we're going to be talking about the Halo modding and just in general how weird this game is and how it's put together with the very talented InfernoPlus over here. Hello, Inferno. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Inferno has a very fascinating resume, I would say, of modding in games. I think you started with Dark Souls, and then you've more recently moved to Halo modding. You may have, if you look on YouTube, there's a very famous video of his cursed Halo, which is, well, I'll let you describe it, but it's we've played it on stream before with him, and he's very talented. So in the background of this little chat, we're going to be playing on one of his maps called the Desert Bus map, where, well, we'll see that in just a moment, but it's just a nice drive, okay? So why don't we hop on in, and then we can get to hanging out.
Let's get this road trip started, man.
I've never done a road trip with anyone. I've always just driven like 20 hours straight by myself, so I'm very excited.
That's the whole point of a road trip. There's so much fun when you're like with other people.
Wait, I take that back. No, I actually did do road trip with somebody.
Yeah, they're way more fun with people.
Oh wait, we're on one team and he's on another team, huh?
No, we're all on the same team. I managed to...
Oh.
Switching teams is like a process, but you can do it.
So there is no blue team.
Yeah, it's just us.
Oh, great. Hey, look at that. Oh. That is unusual.
Go hop in the bus. Go get in the... I mean, I did this for 16 hours with Boone.
It's changed a bit since you did it, though, Bruce, because
we're
not playing on the cursed Desert Bus map, which is his most recent creation. What do you have to say for yourself, Inferno? What the hell am I looking at here?
If you can drive this for more than 100 feet, I'll be impressed.
For our audio listeners, this is a Warthog with, I would just say, hyper hydraulics. You gotta jump to get into
it's on stilts,
top.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness, it is really just... It really is on stilts. Is this what it's like to wear high heels?
I can imagine, yeah.
Oh, it's wobbling! Whoa!
Okay.
Whoa!
That's pretty good.
Whoa! Oh,
And there it goes.
For anyone listening to audio, our stilt car is just capsized, and it was terrifying.
Maybe we should find a calmer one to get us
Get
going.
the limousine. Go get in the limousine.
There's so many good ones, though.
Yeah,
Look at this.
Go hop in
big wheels.
Go hop in the limousine, dude. The Warthog limousine.
What's this tiny one?
It's a short hog.
The short hog. It's adorable. Can we all fit in the short hog?
All right.
It only has 2 seats, but it has the tightest turning radius of any Warthog.
Inferno, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just have some like real quick questions about mods in general. Like, first of all, how did you get started with this stuff? What inspired you to get into this?
Honestly, I was really young. The first game I ever did anything with was a game called Nox, made by Westwood in 1999, I think.
Okay.
It was like Diablo, sort of.
Yeah.
And there was some tool developed by some random I don't even know who at this point, but yeah, they basically made this tool that had a bunch of like hex editors, and you could do map editing for it. And I was like 12, and I had no idea what I was doing, but that was the very first thing I ever did, like modding and coding wise, I believe.
Okay. Did you know how to code, or were you just like,
no,
I'm just gonna learn
I was
it?
12, dude.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was getting into, but I kind of figured things out slowly over time.
Was it just trial and error? Like I'm going to fiddle with this, it broke it. I'm going to fiddle with this, it broke it. Oh, it did.
Yeah, very
it.
much.
Okay.
Very much a lot of crashing.
Do you have a memory of like what the first, in your eyes, like success was at that age? when you made something that was like completely original and you're like, wait a minute, like I can keep going with this, you know?
Yeah, there was a lot of little things, particularly when I first actually made like a custom map for that game that was like totally functional. That was like a huge like, wow, you can do, it's cool. It's like that thing where like you learn like a whole new like field of study. Like there's so much you could do. You have all these different ideas that come from that. It's like the door being opened to a whole new world kind of thing.
Yeah.
I also remember when I first learned 3D stuff, because Halo, I modded Halo when I would say like 2007, you know, like when I was in high school, middle school. And I learned 3ds Max at the time, and that was a journey for sure, because and it's funny how far it's come too, because I still have the really old copies of 3ds Max, and I have some of the newer ones, and they're just so different now.
Yeah.
And I mean, Blender's now really popular too, and that's I think it's probably better to learn Blender at this point because it's a lot easier to get since it's free.
So I guess, did you start with 3D modeling? So for those that don't know, 3ds Max and Blender are 3D modeling programs. So did you start there, or were you starting with the map editor?
Oh no, this was years later.
Okay.
I would say because the first games I modded were like 2D games, like doing StarCraft and Nox and games like that. And then 3D games started getting popular, and I remember when I got a graphics card like for the first time. Like, you know, you go to the tech store with your parents, and you're like, "Can I get this like 128 megabyte graphics card? It'd be so cool, right?"
You want the Voodoo 32FX or whatever the fuck it was called.
Pick the one with the coolest wizard on the front.
Oh yeah, dude, the box art was so good.
Man, dude, I was picking out GameCube games, and here you are picking out graphics cards. I feel.
Oh no, I had games too, man. GameCube was like the best, dude. There were so many good games.
Of course,
on the GameCube.
of course.
But I also, like, you know, over time I got more and more interested in it, and I think it was just kind of like, you know, I was a kid. I just wanted to do stuff for fun, and I just kind of found it fun, like creating things like that, and I just would do it on a pretty regular basis, and I got better and better at it, and this is where it's ended up. So all worked out in the end.
Yeah. Oh my God, what is that in the distance? I think it's slowly coming to the distance.
Yeah. It's a giant warthog.
There's
if
a
you
giant
turn the
warthog.
camera, like you can bring it through the culling plane.
Yeah, it's slowly fading in. I feel we should do a pit stop there. We're about, for those audio listeners, we started on a 1 kilometer. Wait, no, 10 kilometer.
10.
It's actually this road isn't straight, so it's much larger than you think it is.
Okay, we have at least 1 kilometer or 10 kilometer trip in a giant extended Warthog limousine, and in the distance we have fading in a massive Warthog, which I think we will do a quick detour for if everyone wants to get pictures. You know, this is the this is like on the way to Vegas. This is the you know, alien freaking.
Be sure to stay on the road. There are kill planes if you go too far out.
Hey,
Yes,
good
sir.
for you. That's quality design right there.
I call it the dehydration effect.
Yes,
You
of
have the
course.
sun,
Yeah,
and you just
because
don't
the
know.
road hydrates you automatically as you drive it, as we all know.
Yeah.
Oh man, but I want to get there. I hope the road bends around that we get back. Oh yeah, I feel bad for Lawrence in the back because I'm whipping this thing around, and he is
I'm getting maximum G-force back here. It's getting hard to play Game Boy.
So Inferno, I mean, this is like basically just kind of like a casual conversation. So if you, I mean, feel free to like go off any tangents you want, but like, I'm really interested to kind of hear how you went from like modding at 12 to like deciding to make a YouTube channel about it, right? Because
What's the funny thing
I
is I
started
didn't.
when I was like 14, and I was like, you know, it took a while.
I never really decided to do that. This actually just happened too. I mean,
Yeah.
I was doing. I mean, for the longest time, I just did like gaming content. I would just play Dark Souls and cut up highlights and make cute videos out of it. And I did that for ages, and that was fine. And then I think it was. I think it was the Halo 2 Without Friction video. Was like a totally different idea, like completely off the rails for what I normally do on my channel. And people really liked it. And I was kind of surprised. And I was like, I like doing this, so why not take this skill that I have and like do more with it, you know?
Yeah, and it's super unique. I mean, how many like Dark Souls related channels are there out there? Vadi. When
I was gonna say also these dirt roads here. You can go on the dirt roads. There's stuff out in the desert.
Oh, okay. We go down for a pit stop. I'm gonna hang a very wide left.
Yeah, let's do it.
This dirt road. We'll see what's down there. But yeah, I mean, like, there's obviously everyone makes their kind of unique brand, and it's cool to me that you're combining a passion you had that's super distinct from when you were 12 with your modern YouTube channel, and then it worked. That's the dream for everyone, right?
Yeah, like it's interesting too because it was just one of those things where I enjoyed what I was doing with like just making regular old videos about video games and kind of doing a lot, basically doing the kind of only Afro meme Dark Souls videos. And this is something that's more unique for sure. And I don't really think I can't think of any YouTuber who does what I'm currently doing, which is making like comedy mods and like making content about like custom games. It's really interesting, and it's just super enjoyable because I could do anything. I mean, what I'm working on right now, still a long way to go, but I'm working on something for Dark Souls now, and I'm making a custom Dark Souls mod. And it's interesting because I can just change to whatever subject I want. If there's a game that I'm interested in, I can do something with that. And like, it really is like it's like infinite possibilities. And the only downside is it takes months of work to prepare any of these videos at all.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old animation side of YouTube. And I know Bruce and Lawrence, you guys are probably familiar with like how that went, right? Where there was like for a long time, animated YouTube videos, were huge hits, but it took months to make them, and then eventually the algorithm shifted to the point where it wasn't really sustainable anymore, and everyone kind of like moved to more, easy to make content.
YouTube couldn't monetize like really short videos because they wanted people on their platform longer, which is really unfortunate. Because I think actually what Inferno just said is something like a major question I've always had is like, do you have another like day job, Inferno, or do you just because like you said, it takes months of work to make one or two videos. So how is that sustainable for you?
This is my only job.
That's awesome.
Right now, I'm kind of like I'm relying on multiple things. So I get ad revenue. And I also usually have a sponsor deal now with companies that I will generally like.
Good, that's good.
Lately, it's just been Nordvpn and an energy drinks company called Now, and I'm cool with them. I like their products, so I'm like on board with doing those sponsors. And I also have a Patreon thing, and that's like those combined is enough income to keep me situated here. Yeah, and. As long as I can pay my bills and eat, I'm happy.
Well, the reason I say that is because, like, this is something that I think a lot of people need to know, especially about modders or animators or anybody else that are making videos like this on YouTube or anywhere else, is that it takes them so long. So any way you help them out, whether or not it's with Inferno's Patreon or on his YouTube channel or however else, is huge for these creators. And what you guys doing it's so incredibly unique. That I feel like it just needs to be encouraged more and more and more.
That being said, I don't think this White Hog
hold on now, Bruce.
Yeah, I wouldn't jump the gun here. This White Hog does not fit on the road safely, and I think if he spent honestly any time looking at the proportions, he would realize that this thing is not safe, and therefore, bad modder.
This road is actually too small, but making it bigger wasn't possible. Like. This map is actually I'm sure you're familiar with like Power of 2, like you have like 8, 16, 32, 64, right. 128, 512. This map is exactly 32,000 something. It's like an exact Power of 2 in size, and if I make it even like a tiny bit bigger, it crashes.
Nice.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. It's probably because like it's the biggest number that whatever data type they associated with the map size can be. And if you make it bigger, it overflows, and then you have a negative 31,000 size map. Game design is cool. Well, it's interesting because like your team, it's almost like I make this analogy a lot, but it seems pretty accurate. Most people understand video games the way they understand cars, which is that they interface with it on the surface level, and then they kind of develop interesting ideas about how they actually function under the hood, because all you get is like input output. But you're kind of digging more into the motor. Like, you're in the engine, you're in the guts, messing around with it. So has that changed the way that you experience or interact with games at all? Now that you know,
Oh my God.
you've like cut through the smoke and mirrors to a large degree.
So with Halo, I know a lot of details about like the inner workings of every component of it. But recently I've been learning about Dark Souls and how that engine works. And there's some weird stuff. There was something I posted on Twitter a couple days ago about how, did you know that every bonfire in Dark Souls 1, there is an invisible NPC standing on the bonfire that you talk to sit at it?
Oh.
I saw that post. It blew my mind. What have you named this invisible bonfire holder? The actual keeper, right? Not the one in the lore, but the actual invisible model.
I think Bonfire Chan is good.
Okay, that works. Does it have
Estes
proportions?
Kun?
Like, is it just a collision box, or is there actual like a humanoid form there or something?
It's actually intangible, and it's more or less like a point that just sits in space. It doesn't have anything physical to it, but it does exist. It is
The
there.
floating point, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
That makes total sense because the developers they probably, the way they were designing their game, they had those sorts of interactions were always an NPC, and they're just like, just throw another NPC in there, just make it invisible.
See, I think it's funny because Halo is one of the games I'm most familiar with. I always think of things in terms of like Halo's design, and Halo uses what they call a device, which is a special type of object that you interact with. But Dark Souls does not have anything similar to that at all. So they for everything in the game that's interactable, they usually use like an invisible NPC, and it's just it's just a weird way to do that. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, I imagine like modding different games is almost like learning different languages, and you like, as you start to unravel how it actually works, I'm sure there's similarities, but there's probably also like a ton of really unique, ways and processes that it's done. I'm really fascinated by that stuff.
Actually,
yeah, it's a very similar thing to like learning a language for sure. There's syntax to a game, like in a way. It usually is kind of abstracted out to the point where you're working with like larger like I don't know what to call like structures of data. But everything is still can be kind of boiled down into components and like what things do. And it's interesting learning a new game and like how it functions and like how you mod it. And I've done quite a few in the time, but my favorites are things like Halo, because one of the things I like about Halo is that it's very it's like everything's compiled into single files, so it's very easy to like build a mod and then figure out what's wrong with it without too much interference from other components.
Yeah, I actually have a question from my chat from Kitsune, and they're asking, what are you guys doing? They're asking,
a car just respawned and crushed me, so I'm gone. All right, it's down to you guys now.
Kitsune was asking, what's the weirdest thing you've discovered while digging through the Halo engine?
There's a lot of weird things. So one of my favorites is there's a lot of stuff left over from really early versions of Halo 1. Like the pre, like almost the point where like before it was even an Xbox game. For example, the screen flash for the plasma grenade is green, despite the fact that plasma grenades are blue in every Halo game. Because originally the plasma grenades were green, and I think the plasma rifle was also like there's just like a lot of stuff like this where like the plasma rifle was originally the same as the plasma pistol, where it had a charge shot, and they changed that like right at the end of development, and like all the files are in the wrong places in like the core. Like when you break down a map file into its components, like almost all the data is in the wrong folder because they changed this at the last second. They didn't have time to fix it all. And there's there's lots of weird things like that you'll find. There's also an enemy type called an engineer that's like partially finished. That's not in this game. It's not in any of the Halo games. They kind of took it out, but it is in the lore. And they're like little squid monsters that are really good with electronics, and they fix things.
Whoa, that's really cool. I'm like, that's stuff I've never heard before.
Do you find like comments in the code that were left by the devs that you're able to like unravel these things and these kind of like?
Well, it's not the code because you can't really get the code for this game unless you work at Microsoft or 343. But it's just like what you find in the data for the game, like the models that are not finished or like half finished that are just kind of left alone. There's just like lots of pieces of things, and you can kind of find that stuff and reverse engineer what it was for in a way.
Yeah, do you find that I know like comments very literally tell a narrative, but yeah, all you have is compiled resources. But do you find yourself either legitimately, tangibly uncovering a narrative, or maybe like imagining one of your own as you're kind of digging through? Basically, it's almost like digital archaeology of rumbling around in the bits that aren't intended to be seen. So I know that I do that a lot whenever I play a game, even from the surface level of it, just being like, this seems like it was unfinished, or here's an idea that wasn't quite executed completely. And you can kind of sort of see some of the history of the work that went into that project. I mean, gosh, what is it? I won't go too heady into it, but like that notion that once people work on something, they kind of invest their spirit and their soul into it, and you kind of get that reflected back when you interact with that thing.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of spirit in Halo's code. My favorite is when you improperly compile a animation graph with mismatched checksums. You get a message that says, please have Jason push you around in a wheelchair. Someone at Bungie at some point, there was some inside joke they had. We just get the remnant of that afterwards.
That's so interesting. It really is like a spirit, like a ghost of the game that is like, captures a time. That's so cool. I love that stuff.
There was also the great story about how Halo 2's map editor, when you mess up the export to like from a map file, you get a literal picture of one of the developers' asses, and it says ass error.
Oh, jeez.
And like they had to like retract the whole editing kit, and like there was like a recall because technically it would have changed the rating from like teen to M.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Ever since Hot Coffee, yeah. If it's on the disc, it's part of the rating, which is so strange, man. Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. It was always so fun, specifically with code, but to just, when it's, I don't know, we get these like polished products at the end of the day, and often if it's from a big studio, a lot of those weird, quirky bits of humanity get sort of scraped away because, it opens you up to risk. Somebody's not going to get the joke, or they'll just think accidentally seeing a butt isn't funny. But it is fun to kind of scrape away the layers where there is that humanity left, where it's impossible to ignore that people made this thing. And they worked on it for years, and part of their life kind of slipped into it, whether they liked it or not.
Yeah.
Look at this tiny car. Look at this small, tiny car. God damn it!
Underneath them.
You want to take the wheel, Kraken?
If I can manage to get up there. I don't know. The thing's pretty large.
Right.
Yeah, you may have to follow us back to one of those buildings.
All right, I'll stay far away from those feet of yours. You keep going.
To extend the narrative to the audio listeners real quick. We are now in a... Does this have... let's see here.
Yeah, what is the name of that
Warthog?
one?
So I think the names were Big Hog, Huge Hog, and then like Mega Hog, Giga Hog, God Hog, or something, or Wart God, or something like that. Was the way I had it.
We're in a very, very large warthog. We caught back up to Kraken, who spawned at the original, the point in the map. Had to turn around and get him, and he just buzzed right under us in his puny small car.
This is actually the double hog. There's two different fronts of it.
That's not even the tiny one?
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what happens if someone gets in the other front and if they drive as well.
Only one person can drive at a time, but either seat can be the driver's seat.
Oh.
It's a limit of the game itself. You can't actually have two people controlling it at once, unfortunately.
But like if I put my hand off the keyboard, then they could just start piloting it from the back.
You'd have to get in and out. It's like whoever got in first gets to be the driver.
Yeah, makes sense.
I also have a guy in my chat named Chris Lynn, who's a producer on Warzone. And I was noticing he was saying like, hey, if you want to get into game development, then modding is a really good way to do it. And I guess my question for you, Inferno, is, are you ever going that way, or are you just going to stick to modding?
So I actually want to ask a similar question back, but I don't know. I like what I'm doing right now, and I'm going to do it for as long as I can. But I do wonder what I'll be doing 5 years from now. Like, if YouTube just blows up, because it does blow up pretty often.
Yeah.
And I had to change careers. I don't really know what I'd want to do. I could go back to just business programming, which is something I'm good at and I know I can do. Or I could try and get hired by a game studio. I don't know. It's like, it's hard to even say like what I'd want to do at that point.
Of course. Yeah, no, it's because I think to me, both Lawrence and I have, like, we have computer science degrees, and I know Lawrence programmed for a while, and I never actually like did it for a job, but I did it for a bunch of other random things here and there. And I know coding is very, very difficult. And also it's a skill that I think everybody's looking for. So to me, modding in some ways seems harder because you're reverse engineering the things that you're looking into. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I'm just really interested to see what gets you inspired every single, like to every single game you jump into. You're like, you know what? I see a lot in Dark Souls, so I'm going to go to Dark Souls and start and really dig into this project. What do you see in that?
It's mostly games I really like.
Okay.
And I mean, that tends to just be the thing that gets me started. And Dark Souls is a game I love for sure. Like all the Dark Souls games, they're just really well designed, and they're really good, and they're not. They're one of the few games that has like no controversies outside of the game itself. It's From Software is not involved in any of these like awful game development stories you hear as of late. And I'm really happy with that stuff. I love Halo because Bungie as a company has always been really great, and they've done a lot of good stuff in the past. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the first 3 Halo games are all just wonderful games in general, and so I've always liked modding them. Yeah, I mean, it tends to just be that. If I really enjoy a game and I want to expand that, I want to like add to it and like create my own like take on it in a way. Yeah. That tends to be the thing that gets me interested and started. And then the actual process of building things is in itself very rewarding, I would say. Like once you actually start making things and like it's sort of like the tangibility of it. When you create a world space that's like on your own, like you create something that you can actually put your hands on and like play with. It's I don't know, there's just something really satisfying to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in terms of like the inspiration for a specific mod, because like, I mean, you've got such like specific memes that you will like base a whole mod over, right? Such as like the longest Warthog, or you know, I mean, what you linked me of your new Dark Souls thing. I'm not going to reveal it in case it's a secret, but it seems like there's like a very specific either joke or like concept that you seem to kind of like fixate on and then develop an entire like, you know, mod canon around that. Would you describe that process at all? Because I'm really curious about it.
Yeah, so just the first one I'd probably describe, the frictionless mods I did were both based off of Tribes, and Tribes is a shooter from a long time ago that's based around jetpacks and frictionless boots.
Oh, yeah,
love it.
Tribes gang.
We love it.
Yes.
We love it here.
Absolutely wonderful games, and there's like nothing really like them these days. There was Midair, which was a pretty recent one, but it was not very popular, and it kind of went under really quickly. But those kind of games don't really exist, like speed shooters. All you get these days are shooters with AK-47s in them. So I wanted to create something like that, and I had that concept, like I want to make a game that's kind of Tribesy and take Halo as a base, and that kind of came together like that, and it was a lot of fun. And with the Cursed Halo thing, it was kind of like a counter. I wanted to make a game that was completely counterintuitive, where every aspect of it was like unmanageable, and it started with that pistol that they could throwable pistols. And after I got that working, I was like, I wonder what else I could do with the same concept, and I just kept making more annoying weapons to use. And that just kind of like it sort of like gradually. At first, it was just like a fun joke, and then I was like, I could make this into a full mod, and then it became. And as it got bigger and bigger, I was like, I'll make the video about it like this, and I'll just show all this weird stuff, and it kind of naturally just grows from that original idea, and I just keep adding on to it until I have something that's like big enough to be considered its own like package at a point, you know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you don't really start out with that end vision. It seems like you just start with like a thing you find interesting, and then the rest develop naturally.
Yeah, except for this longest Warthog, I had the envision at the start, I just didn't know what it would look like. I was like, I have to get to that point.
Yeah.
But this was because I had promised, like, the joke of making the warthogs longer was like, it was just like a one-off thing. I was like, that's funny. I'm going to do that real quick. And I made like the 2 long warthogs in the original mod. And I thought about it and I was like, how long can they get? Just what point would it break? And like, the idea of that is funny on its own. Just the concept of like, how far can you make this thing go before it just blows up? And that just worked. And I just planned that out. And I did have to go one at a time. It took forever to like make 20 different warthogs that were all one bigger than each other. That was a process that took multiple days.
People, I was gonna say, people asking how long. Like, can you say like how many man hours did it take you to make, for example, one of the longest warthogs? Was it like 24 hours? Like coding hours? How long did it take you?
Well, once you got in the process, I was doing them rapid fire. It doesn't actually take a long time to do one of them. It's just the fact that there was, I mean, this mod has 30 warthogs in it, and most of them, some of them are like completely unique, like the one that's just a turret with wheels, and some of them are like just one big. They're just different versions of each other, and I mean, like each long hog would take like an hour, I think, to put together.
Ugh.
So putting together 20 long hogs is like 3 days of work.
Yeah,
in a way,
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like what you were mentioning about like pushing the boundaries, the pre-existing boundaries of an engine or game systems? I found a lot of fascination with that in, or similar sentiments to that in the speedrunning community. How like they can sequence break or get out of bounds, and they push it right to the verge of like, okay, we know exactly where the boundaries are, that this rickety engine falls completely apart, but we can kind of push outside the boundaries a little bit. And what's, I guess, fascinating to me is that a lot of those decisions are entirely incidental, of like, they dedicated 16 megabytes of RAM for this instead of 8, and now you can do all this other stuff simply because you have the room to play around with. Is that a similar sentiment that you get when you get inside of a game's assets and start like nudging on things that weren't intended to be nudged?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. A lot of times it's like, for me, it's things that are in the engine that weren't used. For example, Halo 1's code has, or Halo 1, we don't have the code, but we have the SDK. There's all these flags and like effects that are just not used in the original game, and they probably were used at some point in development, but were taken out, and they just kind of left the remnant of what it was. And I find that those are fun to play with, when you can like, there's a mechanic in a game that's just disabled, and you, like in Dark Souls 3, the poise is disabled, and you can just re-enable it with a flag. It's like that's fun when you find stuff like that, and you can totally alter a game with something that wasn't really intended to be used in the end. Halo 1 has a whole bunch of stuff regarding like weapons blowing up. Originally the plasma rifle, if it overheated, would explode or something along those lines based on what's in the tagging. And you can actually use that to do different things than was intended. Like for the there was at one point I made a version of the throwable pistols that when you threw it, you had to go pick it back up, and it was really annoying to use because of that. Because every time you threw your weapon, you had to go get it. But the way it worked was it actually exploded with an invisible explosion, and would then create a new one moving away from you. And so I was using a mechanic of the game engine that's not even intended to be used, and in a way that it was never intended to be used at all. So finding stuff like that is fun. I love that kind of stuff.
There's a real magic to this. When Lawrence and I were making content at Funhouse, I know that Lawrence, both of us, we would always be looking for, there was a specific magic to a game that was, the game was kind of dumb, but it still worked, and it still had kind of derpy physics, but the physics were still pretty solid. And I've noticed that you do that kind of stuff with these sort of cursed mods, is that there's a balance that you strike between completely and totally broken and you can't play it, but also broken enough to where it's funny, but it still works. Like, is that just trial and error for you, or have you started to learn a method to that?
Yeah, it tends to be you take something that's known and you distort it to the point where it's wrong, but it's still functional. Like, there's definitely a balance to it where like you can go too far either way. It's very easy to mess it up. But like the idea is just that you just gotta find that balance between a Warthog that's undrivable and just hard to drive.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think you're really, really good at it. Other games that are obviously really good at it, like GTA 5, they have really, really derpy physics, but the game still works, and it still feels like it is doing what it should be doing. But it's funny, and you're really, really good at that, and that's actually very, very hard to do. I mean, like this Warthog. This is insane. This Warthog
is the widest load I've ever seen.
But it still drives. It still works. It still goes. And that's what's awesome about it.
It's cool. Like I don't know how much finagling this took on your part, but like it functions much like a Warthog does. It's just with the added physics that you would expect of something of this this massive girth. Like it's hard to describe unless you're like behind the wheel of it, but like it just drifts consistently because of how much surface area that has to cover.
There's definitely a factor like a lot of it was automatic in a way where like as long as I'm putting the physics together correctly, it's going to end up driving weird just because of the shape.
Yeah.
But some of it also is like I had to like tweak. I tried to properly multiply the mass and like momentum of each vehicle based on how big it was. And also with the turret, I had to balance that turret somehow, and it does like it shoots 5 bullets at a time. But I had to make the bullets really weak to compensate for that, so that it wasn't just an instant kill.
Yeah.
Do you?
And this one is, I think this one floats, right? This is the hover
Yeah,
hog?
it's like a ghost.
Oh no!
That was
spun
on
too
me.
fast. It spun too fast. I killed
up.
Lawrence. All right, oh man. All right, this is gonna be a long trip. We gotta keep going back for everyone.
Do you do you have an emergent term in your head for this sort of comedy? Because to me, there's some overlap in meme humor of like you start with an image and then you see how many times you can permute it. So you're like, how many different ways can I distort the Warthog? And let's make it long, make it wide, make it tall, make the wheels inverted, make it have like 18 million guns. But to me, the punchline is when the player gets in it and pulls the trigger. And so you kind of set that thing up for somebody else to explore and discover on their own. I don't know if like, is there a term for that, or is there acknowledgement of that just in terms of comedy and humor? Because I feel like it has to be something we're going to see more of. Reminds me of like those goofy reload animations in Battlefield Hardline and stuff like that. Oh, dude.
Hyper's videos on YouTube are amazing for that. He does this kind of comedy exactly like. In fact, that's inspiration for me watching his videos. That stuff really inspired me. Where he had the giant Glock, like it's just a Glock that's way too big, and you have to like hold it with your whole arm and stuff. Like it's beautiful, and I would say it's visual comedy, but it's like game visual comedy, and that it's like interactive visual comedy.
Yeah, the interactivity makes it so interesting because you basically
I love that.
You set up you set up like a setup and a punchline, but you have to do it through almost set decoration, and then just kind of inviting somebody in to like pull the trigger on a limp-nosed rifle, and then it actually shoots, and like the barrel flops all around like a little penis, and it's like it's almost like at least for me, when I'm experiencing content like that, it's like a dare. It's like there's no way this is going to actually work, and then it does, and it's something about the anticipation and build-up makes the payoff even better.
I also say it's kind of like it's almost like a prank in a way. You're pranking the player almost.
Yeah,
that's kind of a way to think of it too.
Yeah, it's like a prank, but then you have to use it as like as like responsibly as you can, which is completely counter to the point of the prank. But like because it's a game and it's your only option as a tool or a weapon, then like you still have to make do. I remember you've gone down in history to some degree on my channel, Inferno, because of of the Cursed Halo mod. When I was playing through the campaign, I know you have a D20 frag grenade, which is one of the features of his of his Cursed Halo, which is basically you throw a frag grenade and there's more than I think even 20 options of things that will happen when it explodes.
It's like in the 50s somewhere.
Yeah. Some of them are good, such as a very big cluster bomb explosion, or spawning allies in a Warthog, or some of them are bad, such as spawning a hunter, or actually nuking the entire map and killing everyone, including you. And then some of them are really bad. Specifically, one of them, which we discovered on stream, he snuck in a 3D model of Thanos. who's crouched down and is just kind of jerking a giant Thanos schlong that is just out there. And I had no idea that existed until I threw it at a bunch of Covenant in a desperate moment. And then I see the explosion, and I turn into the shadowy corner, and I just see this giant purple grimace-looking motherfucker staring at me with just a third leg, like tripod style, on the ground. And I scream and spin the camera away, and it's gone down in history on our side. So thanks for that, but also fuck you.
You know, I was just say, like, I remember when you messaged me about it, and I was kind of like, I hope you're not actually mad, because I should have warned you, but it is fairly rare, and I had just forgotten about it at the time.
Sure, sure.
I think it is like less than 1 in 100 chance or something like that. But the thing is that this is actually, like, I think, a problem, because I did not expect this mod to be popular when I made it. I had thought, it'll be funny. Some people will like it, but I did not think it would blow up. If I had known how popular it would be, I would not have put it in. Because I got some emails about hey, this is kind of inappropriate.
Yeah.
Can I get that model? Hey, you got any of that model sitting around?
Yeah, there's some of the inappropriate emails and a lot of the, where can I get Thanos model?
I'm going to need that. Just, don't ask why. Just a little fanfic I'm making.
Yeah, that actually brings up a good point, though, on a topic that fascinates me. I feel like I said fascinated way too many times, but this has just been a really good conversation, so I apologize for that. But I really like the concept of making something that starts off as either an inside joke or a small bit, and then once it reaches an audience you didn't expect, it's sort of going mainstream, and then having to deal with the repercussions of that.
Oh yeah.
That's real quick, Lawrence, which way did you go? Because I'm going back for you the way that we came, and I'm starting to realize you probably went the other way.
No. I think I'm headed towards you guys. It's just the road has a pretty big bend here,
okay,
so
okay.
I think it'll be back around.
We'll catch up soon enough.
Yeah, the road's a big, long curving kind of switchback type thing.
Did you do that to get more road in the square you were allowed?
Yeah,
okay,
pretty much.
Right on.
I tried to maximize roadage. To make this as excruciating as possible.
Excellent. Absolutely excellent. Do you find that through this process of making goof mods, you actually... So I feel like you have to understand the rules in order to know when and how to break them. So do you feel like you've seized upon some elements of good design and now you can kind of fudge them on purpose? So just the process of being well, I have a square, how can I make the longest road? Tons of gradual switchbacks with lots of kill planes to enforce people to actually drive on the road. That's pretty good design, and you're getting the effect out of the resources you have. So, I'm just curious.
Additionally, you could look at the cliffs. The placement of the cliffs and hills obscures the road switchback, so you don't actually know where they are.
Excellent. Oh man, that's so awesome. So was that just iteration and normal game design? You played it, and then you realized you could see the road over there, and that felt cheap, so you put a little ridge in the way. What was the process of refining that?
The first thing was finding out what the biggest space was, and then how much road that would be. And it wasn't enough. Halo 2's limit is much wider, much bigger. You can make the play space as big as you want, almost to a ridiculous degree. But this, I had restrictions about the total play space. So it was all right. I kind of came up with the generic shape, and then we did a quick test drive on a really rough version of this map that was just boxes. I got the concept of what I wanted, and then I did the actual work of, I made a spline of the road, which is I don't even know if I can explain that one. A spline is like a curvy line. It's like a vector.
Yeah.
And I made the spline of the road, and then I converted it to an actual surface, and then I modeled the desert around the surface, and then I used some painting tools to deform the desert into the kind of shape I wanted, and just tweaked at it for a while, and eventually got it kind of right, and then I cleaned it all up and did the texturing and all the actual art stuff, and that was about it.
Huh. Sorry, I think I may have cut off somebody else's question or answer there. My apologies.
Well,
I asked about the making a goof mod that blows up and the
Oh right, unintended.
Has it changed your approach, I guess, to when things become a small bit or an inside joke, and then suddenly now is reaches an audience you didn't expect. Has that changed your approach at all, or I guess how do you deal with that sort of stuff?
I'm more careful now. This can also be kind of tied back into like, I'm more careful now in a lot of ways, now that I've gotten a lot more popular with what I do. Particularly with the copyright stuff, I have to be very careful, because, you know, I have had issues with this in the past, using tiny little excerpts and samples of music and stuff.
Yeah.
You just can't do that anymore. It's just, they've kind of taken that fun away. So, when I do stuff, I try to think about like, what are the possible repercussions, and is it worth it? If it's a little bit risky or not. It's kind of like when you tell a joke that's a little edgy, and you don't want to offend everyone, but this is kind of funny, so I kind of want to make a joke of it, you know. You got to be careful, right?
Yeah.
Know exactly what you mean.
I was going to say, we all know that very, very well.
Also, if you like, I imagine if like a screenshot gets out of Long Dong Thanos in Halo, and if it gets popular enough, Microsoft may come knocking around being like, hey, maybe don't put a giant
or
uncut...
Marvel, you know?
What
if it gets to Marvel and they're like, what have you done to our pure purple boy? Cease and desist immediately.
Yeah, I'd have to make like an update to the mod to fix that if I actually got a cease and desist letter.
I cannot wait for that bug, that patch note of removed Long Dong Thanos. Sorry.
You know, I think someone actually made a mod to remove it. I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember someone asking me about it, and then someone was like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll make a version without the dong. It's like, you know, thank you for doing that, because I didn't feel like doing it. It's like...
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's killing your babies. You know, you got to go in there and remove this little special guy that you put in. I'm glad that when I discovered him, he was shrouded in shadow in like the corner of the map, because it made it more terrifying in some ways. But if he was like in the bright sun right in front of me, I don't know if I could get that vision out of my eyes. But at least now there's some mystery to it, some taste
burned into your cornea.
Yeah. The funny thing is that image is like an image it is an inside joke for me and my friends, and we would send it to each other in Discord all the time.
Of course.
So like the fact that got put in there was because of that, because they're the ones who play tested the mod.
It's your version of Dave's butt or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Except
it's the ass error.
It's the ass
beget
error.
memes. I love it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of people that want to actually sponsor us, even though we have Long Dong Thanos in our games and content, because you were talking about NordVPN earlier, Inferno, they're actually sponsoring this podcast too.
Wow.
Yeah. Talk to the Internet is sponsored by NordVPN. If you go to nordvpn.com/talk2internet, right now you can get the 2-year plan plus 1 month free for 68% off. I'm staring at the deal right now, and it says there's like 7 hours left on this, but I don't know what the new deal will be when this podcast airs. But for right now, it is the 2-year NordVPN plan plus a month free for 68% off. And if you guys don't know what NordVPN is, basically VPN is a server that routes your internet traffic through another server in order to protect it. And they've got super fast servers they have 5,500 servers in 60 countries. You can actually watch like region locked things like Netflix through that VPN if they're routing through different countries. 30-day money-back guarantee on NordVPN. Protects your data while you're traveling, obviously like in public, like in coffee shops or at the airport or whatever. There's a CyberSec suite, which acts as an ad blocker. There's also a really fast connection that they've got for NordVPN called NordLynx that increases the speed in the case you were worried about your internet speed going through a VPN. No data logging, 24/7 customer support, works even in China. And there's up to 6 simultaneous connections, which is really cool with NordVPN. So it's compatible with most operating systems. It's literally you just install it on Windows and you just click one button and it's on. It's that simple. There's also an extension for your Chrome browser if you don't want to use VPN to route all of your internet traffic through. You can just route some of your browser traffic through the NordVPN extension, unlimited bandwidth, et cetera, et cetera. So go to nordvpn.com/talk2internet. And right now, for the people that are watching live, you can get the 2-year plan plus 1 month free for 68% off. But in a few days, I don't know what deal there will be. Before they were doing the 3-year plan. So who knows? It could be the 2-year plan. It could be the 3-year plan. Regardless, you're going to save somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80% off with the Talk to Internet code. So please support this podcast by using that Talk To Internet code at NordVPN.
Thank you, Bruce.
Of course.
And thank you, NordVPN. An important kind of theme, I mean, some people might be picking up on is, especially with the uncertainties of a lot of the platforms that we make content on, such as YouTube and Twitch and, rest in peace, Mixer, is that, like, we never really know where things are going to go. So the only kind of common denominator is being able to pull sponsors that support the kind of content that we do and allow us to keep doing weird shit like what you're looking at right now on the screen or listening to, where we are floating on a Warthog through a endless desert map with giant warthogs in the distance. And I think that's, frankly, just a beautiful kind of byproduct of the internet we're in nowadays. So, thankful to all the sponsors that make that possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know,
go ahead.
Inferno, you've done an interesting, his approach to sponsorship has also been modding in sponsor items or kind of elements into some of the mod packs that he makes. I'm kind of curious on what that process is like, because that sounds like a very interesting way of doing it. I think that's brilliant, like having, a segment of your video actually include a sponsored item in the mod pack, and then you actually get to use it for the rest of the playthrough,
Yeah, that's been a fun thing to do. I love like making machinima bits for my ads because it just makes them actually entertaining.
Yeah.
There's a big problem with a lot of times during your ad read, it's just kind of like people just skip a minute anyway. It's just kind of dead space in your video.
Right.
Where I'm like, I try to integrate it in a way that like makes it a part of the whole joke anyway. Like try to include it as a part of the video as opposed to just having it being an aside. I am a little worried though. Technically, I don't know if I'm breaking some rules with like terms of service by doing that.
Using like
I
Halo
don't
assets
know.
and stuff.
Yeah, it might be kind of against the rules, but it's like really gray, I imagine.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't even really thought about that. I mean, there is stuff like Rooster Teeth's Red vs. Blue, which I know they've done adverts and stuff, with their characters. I'm pretty sure.
I think they have explicit permission from Microsoft.
They probably worked that out separately. So it's hard to tell.
I don't know
we also have like a ton of ads that you can, we run over existing game content, and what's to say we're not using the game as a vehicle for those ads in that case too, So
yeah, I think there's an argument to be made that unless I'm like saying the NordVPN is approved by Master Chief, like I think that's the line you cross right there.
Yeah.
When it's just kind of a part of the joke and it's not like explicitly saying Microsoft endorses this, I think I'm fine,
That's a really good question actually that somebody asked in my chat earlier. Have anybody like reached out to you from from Software or 343 or Bungie or anything like that? Reached out to you about these mods?
From Software is a definite no because I don't speak Japanese.
You never know. I'm sure they have people that speak English there.
Microsoft, I know one guy who works at 343, and I spoke to him briefly. He was actually one of the administrators for one of the modding websites for Halo back when I was younger. I'm wondering if he would want me to give his name.
You don't have to.
Know.
No, they were just curious. They were just curious if they reached out to you. And I mean, like, I know the first thing that people always think is, do they reach out to you and offer you a job? That's generally the question that people ask. It's always like,
no, I've never been offered a job or anything like that. I've spoken with a couple people in the industry, I think, who have just found my videos and been like, hey, this is cool. But not a whole bunch, just a couple here and there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I guess that goes back to what Lynn was asking, and I apologize because I don't know that I remember getting your real take on it. I think we may have wandered off, or I just missed it somehow. But is your goal to become a game developer on a team, or are you just really enjoying your creative expression right now?
My best case scenario for me would be to create my own small studio and produce games. Weird games.
How can I enable this in any way? Please let me know.
I don't know. it's so difficult. Like, I'm not a business oriented person at all. I am terrible at that kind of stuff, and I would be terrified of trying to handle it on my own in the first place. So I would need a lot of, like, I would have to reach a point where I have a lot of extra money to throw around and hire people to handle the actual business aspect of it for me, because I could not do that. I'm great at working with computers, but not with people.
Yeah, I just threw your Patreon link, because I think this is your Patreon. It's patreon.com/InfernoPlus, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I just threw that in my chat, and I second Lawrence. I would love to figure out a way to keep you guys doing that and actually make your own games. The first thing I thought of when you were like, yeah, we'd like to make weird games, is Goat Simulator. And I don't know if you ever played that game or if that was on your radar at all, but it's like, is that the kind of thing that you're looking to make? Just something completely off the wall and totally different?
Well, I think I'm actually more interested in, like, exploring genres of games that haven't been done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, mixing things together that you've never seen before. And like, I have ideas, and I've kind of like documented what I kind of want to do in some places, but most of that stuff is like totally unique. I'm not tied to anything like already known. It would just be like my own idea, trying to create my own entire world space and stuff. And it is such a process. I released a small little web game this year, and I mean it was not a very complex game. It was very simple, and it had very little art and it was just a really small multiplayer web game, and even that took multiple years of work to put together properly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's something for another time. Like, I'd really have to. There's a lot of work that would have to be done to even get started.
Yeah.
On like trying to build like a full game from scratch with a team.
That being said,
and
do you see a world where you could basically, because I think a lot of what you're describing is that you can kind of speed up, or you can see this being more viable with the help of a team, either on the biz dev side, or maybe with assets or something like that. Do you see a way of integrating that with what you're already doing with your YouTube channel? Is there, a specific...
I want to hire an animator.
Okay, great. So there we go. Like,
I want to hire a 3D animator. I don't know if I can afford it, but I really want to. I think about that all the time, dude. Like, 3D animation is so time-consuming and difficult to do well.
Yeah.
And like, I understand the core and the basics of it, and I can do it okay. But if I had a 3D animator, that would like cut some of my dev time to like it would just cut out so much time spent doing that.
Because I think that's one of the things that we really, or at least what I'm really motivated by with this style of podcast that we're doing is kind of sharing your story and letting people kind of see the possibilities of it and how achievable it is, but also like putting out that sort of call to action, right? That if there is someone out there, for example, that either knows 3D animation or wants to learn but has never really seen a way they could actually do it in like a sustainable way, like this is the new way of being self-employed, is like finding strange little side projects that you're passionate about and finding someone else that has another complementary skill, and then cooperating to make something that's unique that can reach an audience and monetize in some way. So if anyone is interested in working with Inferno, then maybe give them a shout on Twitter or via Patreon. I think that's it would be really cool to see what people put together with him.
Yeah, I don't know if I could afford it right now, because 3D animation is not it's definitely not something you would do for cheap.
Yeah,
that is for certain. But it's like something I've always thought about. Like, I think there are a lot of mods I want to do that would require like someone who's like full time and like fully trained in doing that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think there'll come a time where hopefully I'll be able to afford and do that. Mm-hmm. And I look forward to that for sure. Yeah,
I mean, it's honestly the trajectory you're on. Absolutely, I think you're already on the way. Actually, I don't want to reveal too much, but Are there any games you're excited about? Like, have you been eyeing a specific game and been like, man, I really want to get into that, but I need an animator, or man, I really want to get into that, but I have enough time? Is there anything like on your goals right now for the next couple of years?
One of the ones I've thought about, and I have not guaranteed I'm going to actually. I looked at the source code for it, and I kind of thought about doing this. Making a mod with OpenMW, which is a Morrowind rewrite project.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've used that before. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, it's a wonderful project, and it's very well written. I looked at the code for it a bit. And I was thinking, like, wouldn't it be interesting to, like, rework that game's combat into something way more interesting?
Yeah.
I mean, like, and this is, like, one of those things where I'd need an animator to do, I mean, hundreds of third-person animations to make this work. But make that game play like a Souls game or, like, a more modern third-person action game.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, that's, like, an interesting idea, because it's totally doable. With the tools that are available now, but it's also a huge undertaking, and I would have to. I don't know C++ that well. I know it, but I'd be learning some things when working on that.
Real quick tangent. We just arrived at the Blue Base. It's been almost exactly an hour, and I think it's time to get this back home. So let's take the long road back. Oh wait, this is the one I wanted to try. This is the thin hog. This is going to be bad.
And Inferno, I wanted to take this time to actually thank you, because you were indirectly responsible for. We just did a Microsoft Flight Simulator stream, a 16-hour flight simulator stream where we sat in the cockpit of like a real airplane and then streamed Microsoft Flight Simulator, one of the longest flights in the world. And you were indirectly responsible for this because my friend Boone and I were doing the Desert Bus Halo map. We did a stream last November where we drove back and forth for 16 hours in Desert Bus. And if we had never done that with your mod, then we would never have done the Microsoft Flight Simulator stream. So thanks.
Yeah, I actually I love flight sims actually.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big fan of IL-2, which is a combat flight sim.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Sturmovik?
Particularly based on...
Yes.
Sturmovik.
that one.
Wonderful
Awesome.
game.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, I love those games. It's unfortunate they're really time-consuming to play and, like, set up, because you have to set up a track IR and a whole flight stick, and it's like an hour of prep just to play, but it's a great game.
Yeah. Well, we would never have done that giant Microsoft Flight Simulator stream if it hadn't been for Desert Bus, which I know was originally a Penn and Teller game on. I think it was it Dreamcast or like
This thing is Sega CD or something.
was it Sega CD?
Jeez,
Yeah,
it was an old one. Oh,
whatever
man.
it was. But so it's just, I don't know. It's just a really, it speaks to what you're doing, because I just think it's really cool that, in my opinion, what you're doing is sort of the next generation of machinima.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to watch.
I take a ton of inspiration from Red vs. Blue for obvious reasons. Like,
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
that's a lot of people. I've had people be like, "Wow, you're just copying them," and I'm like,
What?
Well, I kind of am, because I love them.
I don't see that at all. I mean, I guess
Yeah,
maybe the way that
no.
you talk to the camera, but like that is just copying the concept of talking to a camera in Halo, which is like definitely not owned by anyone.
I think they're just referring to the style of it in a way. Like it's very much inspired by Red vs. Blue.
Sure.
I watched that a lot as a kid.
Would you guys hop in this long hog, and we can run it back home?
Gladly.
I think we can get there in
Excellent.
time before the end of the podcast. I think if we just make no detours, no potty breaks.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean, you wouldn't be able to hear me even if I needed to.
Good luck turning this thing around.
Rocket! We
Wait,
need
is
to
it-
pull
this-
over!
Can we go this way, or is this like?
This is the end of the world. This way.
Oh no. Okay. All right. Well, I'm turning.
It's a simple 3-point turn. No problem. Just a
God.
simple 3-point turn. There we go.
So for the people listening in audio, this Warthog is probably 30 links long. So if you think of one Warthog, it's times 30. To me, it looks like a limousine. It's like one of those Cadillac Escalade limousines.
Stretch Escalades, yeah.
Oh, I love those. But it's a Warthog. And I fucking love it.
It's phenomenal.
Is
Absolutely
this the
phenomenal.
longest hog, or is there a longer hog? in the
Oh,
map?
there's much longer ones.
There's much longer
I
ones?
excluded a lot of the really exceedingly long ones because they don't drive properly.
Right.
Like you'll drive, like you go over like a 2-foot hill and it bottoms out and you get stuck. And the longest one in the video, that thing is an absolute monster. It's like scripted to function. So it doesn't even work in multiplayer. Like it's just completely broken in multiplayer. And that's also excluded for obvious reasons. The source for them exists though, for people who want to play with that stuff. Like all the mods are like unprotected open source, so you can just do whatever you want with them.
Well, that's really cool. If I don't know if you can do this too. I'm not sure if this is like goes against what you're doing for your Patreon, but can you tell us a specific mod you're working on for Dark Souls or no?
I am working on something. I don't really want to reveal a lot about it.
Yeah, you don't have to.
But I do want to thank the people who actually are in the modding like community for Dark Souls. They have been very helpful, particularly Dropoff. His Twitter is just @Dropoff, I think. But yeah, he's been teaching me some stuff. He's been very helpful. Meow Artemis also has been helping me, and I one of the tools that they developed is a C# tool. Like the other day, I like installed Visual Studio and for the first time used C# ever to like improve one of their tools to make it do some extra stuff I needed. And like they've just been super helpful, and I'm really appreciative of that because I would not have gotten anywhere with this project without them. For sure.
I imagine that, especially with kind of your growing success of your channel, is you've probably found other modders that are interested in helping and joining. Do you think you've kind of begun to assemble this kind of Avengers team of like Mimi game modding folks that will, are interested in this sort of stuff, or is it still very much a solo project for you?
It's fairly solo. I definitely get help. There's no doubt that I get help from all sorts of different sources, but I don't have delegate work very often. It is very rare that I'm like, can you do this process for me? I don't even know if I've really... The only thing I can think of is the actual port of this mod to MCC was done by Shawnee Boy. I just sent him the files and he just ported it for me, and I really appreciated that because I don't understand the process to do it. But no, it's mostly a solo thing. What I have noticed is that I tend to get positive reception when I like ask for help. When I ask for help in like any of the modding discords I've been in, there's always someone there who's like, yeah, here's what you need to do, or like here's a link to what you need to look at. And I don't know if that's just them being generally helpful to anyone who asks, or if it's just that they kind of know who I am and like they know that I do good stuff, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not sure which of those it is, but whichever way, it's been good.
Do you feel so I got a little shiver when I heard this, so I'm curious. Do you feel like a badass when it's like, yeah, I just had to install Visual Studio and learn C# just to customize this tool to do a specific thing I wanted? It sounds like you are very accustomed to hitting barriers and then learning what you need to move through them.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's definitely it's a flex moment. It's definitely like I just learned C# yesterday.
That's wild to me.
Like,
I mean, to a degree,
actually,
like, once you learn one language, you can kind of translate those concepts. You just have to learn the syntax and the philosophy behind it. But
yes, there's always some stuff like the way that the structs work in C#, or I don't know if they're actually structs, but there's something like that. Didn't really know how that worked at first. Took a little bit to figure out. But it's like Java. It's like Java with extra steps.
You just said the worst possible thing.
Lawrence hates Java.
Yeah,
I actually like Java, so
I did too. Yeah, I did too.
give me my memory allocation. I'm gonna do it anyway, Java. You're just making it harder on me. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna mess up my RAM. You can't stop me. Anyway, that means nothing to nobody.
I mean, well, it's funny because somebody's like, Java's trash. So in my chat, which is hilarious because like most of the internet's built on Java. Yes, exactly. That's the thing is, it's funny just because Java is I would say pretty easy. It's pretty easy to learn, I think, unless you really have a hard time learning programming languages. And what do you spend like the most time in using in terms of like modding and stuff like that?
For modding, It's not really much programming most of the time. It's usually more just working with tools and SDKs.
Oh, okay.
But with programming, I honestly end up using JavaScript the most lately because it's just everything is JavaScript. JavaScript is just taken over. It's everywhere. I mean, Discord is JavaScript, isn't it? Right?
It's like the are you team JavaScript or team HTML5? And it seems like JavaScript's winning that bizarrely.
Well, they're the same thing. I mean, you can't have one or the other.
Yeah, you're right.
They're kind of like tied together in a way.
Inferno, has there ever been a set of kind of modding tools or SDK that you have begun to work in or kind of start learning, and then just decided it wasn't worth it and given up?
I'm gonna say Skyrim as a joke. I didn't give up. I finished that project, but Skyrim definitely tried to make me give up.
Really?
There's definitely that one.
Was that like the sloppiest out of all of them you've seen?
I think sloppy is a good word. It's not bad. It is very. It's like a Swiss Army knife with 10,000 tools, but half of them don't work right. So,
just kind of like putting your palm to the earth and feeling the rumbles coming up. Do you feel like Skyrim is, even playing it, you kind of get the sense that it's like there was a base of bad or of incomplete decisions, and then people had to build on top of that, and then people had to build on top of that. So now you have these dev tools that don't function as you assume they would, but I'm sure all the developers know the quirks and build around them or build on top of them, which is even scarier.
That's let's call it pitfalls. If anything.
Okay.
Like, it's the pitfall. It's like when you know where it is, it's fine. You just work around it. But the first time through, you're gonna fall in it every time.
So you did a lot of falling, tumbling through Skyrim. Then is that what?
Oh yeah. Okay. I fell through many holes. It was not a fun experience, and there's the one mod I ever did for Skyrim. There's still bugs in it that I know like people complained about, and I'm like, I'm not fixing it.
Now you're a real game developer. Yeah, it's a known issue. I'm marking this as closed, and I'm gonna go to sleep and sleep like a baby.
Yeah. That the thing is, Skyrim. I will say right now, Skyrim's modding tools are very impressive. They do things that no other game engine does, and there's a reason it's so popular and why it's so ubiquitous for modding. But my God, some of the tools just don't make any sense. They just do weird things that you don't want them to. And the camera controls. Oh my God, that's the thing that killed. That's the thing that made me give up. It would have make me give up. Is I don't get how their perspective works in that editing kit. It makes no sense. It's like you hold shift to rotate, but it rotates around some arbitrary point. Like not where your camera is and not where the mesh is, and I just can't. It's so bad.
Actually, speaking about camera controls, I don't know if you've done this specifically with your own mods, but have you thought about modding in camera controls to games that don't previously have them in order to achieve a similar level of machinima making kind of potential that some of the games that you've already made videos for do, like allowing you to have a free cam mode and stuff to get shots that weren't possible in the base game?
That's way outside my field of expertise. I am not. So there's people who do this, and they're very talented, where they just use cheat engine and they just reverse engineer the game assembly like as it's running, and they just figure things out. I don't understand what they're doing. I can do very basic like real-time memory editing stuff, like just changing values and finding things. But what they do, where they add like free cams to games that don't have them, or like unlock there's a guy who's called Lance who does this for like the Souls games. He like does this on dev kits for like PS4s and stuff. Yeah. And like he unlocked the dev menus and the free cam in Bloodborne. That guy's a madman. I have no idea how he does that.
So they actually watch the assembly real time, and they can kind of piece out where in RAM to start poking to see if they can get into.
Oh yeah. Have you ever played around with Cheat Engine, Lawrence? It is
I have a little bit
fascinating tool. Yeah.
I basically imitated, I think it was, I can't remember which Vine sauce it was, but did like N64 corruptions way back in the day. And yeah, that's the extent of it, is I basically just copied the corruptions that they used that were stable enough, one of those things.
Yeah.
So that's the extent of it, is just, that's the mucking around I've done. And that's on an N64. That's not on a PS4, that's not on a PC. That's like very finite amounts of RAM, and everything is like nice and caged in its little pens, and there's not that much to look at. So I can't even imagine something like Bloodborne and just being able to see
Yeah.
through the patterns of data and CPU
And
executions
it's just
happening.
so much happening at once. Yeah, I've only ever touched it twice, and I used it in a vindictive way, which I'm not proud of, but the game deserved it. It was Mordheim City of the Damned, and that game is notoriously unfair. And one of the story missions soft locked to the point where it was just consistently spawning enemies that were killing me or killing my units, and I couldn't beat the level because it wouldn't let me. So in a rage, I went back in off stream and like just ripped open the game data and like live edited it to give myself what I needed to beat the level.
Nice,
And
Kraken cheated. You built a cheat. You built a cheat.
I successfully cheated in that game, but then I covered my tracks well enough that the next stream, it was near impossible to tell. I mean, I've outed myself now, but that game frankly deserves it. It's pain incarnate. So I have no regrets.
That's it's weird. Inferno, this is just a kind of a random question for you, not necessarily something that you've toyed in, but it's something that I've always found interesting, which are game cheats, or like actual game cheats that they build into, like that people sell and for multiplayer games, things like that. And I don't know if that's have you ever, does that ever cross your mind, or have you ever talked to anybody that builds those things, or like do you have any knowledge of that kind of stuff? Because I feel like a lot of the modding stuff is basically that. It's also game cheats.
Yeah,
You're just
evil
modding the
instead
game.
of good sort of thing, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah. See, I'm familiar with a lot of that stuff because I've messed around with and I understand like a lot of the tools that I use for Machinima in Dark Souls are the exact same tools you use to harass people in Dark Souls.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
It's just how you use them.
Right.
Is the only difference.
Yeah. That's it was just an interesting, because it sounds like the same thing to me, and I was just wondering if you thought it was.
I don't know about the people who selling stuff like that. That's definitely not legal.
Not that stuff, but just like they reverse engineer a cheat, and it sounds like kind of the same thing, but you're just doing it for fun versus.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who do it, and like I said, I find that it's most common that the people developing the actual like tools used to do these kinds of like memory editing in real time to make things happen in a game. A lot of people making those are doing it for good reasons. Like they just want to explore what's possible. They just want to like unlock the free cam or fix debug menus or just make stuff. And then it tends to be younger kids who take them and do bad things.
Oh, interesting.
And that's why they get the name Script
Yep.
Kitty, generally speaking.
Good old script kitties. That's fun.
Huh.
I mean, that's
Were
the
you-
weird byproduct of just hacking culture in general. Is that,
Yeah.
the real professionals do it for just the exploratory thrill most of the time. And then, the byproduct of that is that you get a nice, clean little executable that somebody who doesn't know what they're doing can just run it and then access parts of the game they weren't intended to.
Would you ever define your earlier childhood as a script kiddie, Inferno? Do you think you fit that category?
Charged question.
I definitely had some stuff when I was much younger. Everyone does. Everyone's an asshole when they're
Of course,
like
yeah.
17. I actually wrote a Minecraft hack client and would go around and mess with people.
Oh,
That shit was funny. It really was.
That's
funny.
awesome.
let's hear a story of this, the dark side of Inferno's past. I want to hear it.
Oh yeah. Where I like wrote in stuff so I could like track where other players were within a huge radius, so that I would like sneak up on them and like just do mean stuff, and that was it. It was silly and stupid. And that's
Oh man, that stuff is so great. That's Minecraft bullying.
Yeah,
basically yeah.
My example of that, I didn't use any like hacks or tools or any scripts, but I when I was probably, I want to say 13 or 12, I probably only like 12, I ran a scam in RuneScape. We ran it like 3 times, and it was all with my local high school friends, or not high school at that point, it was middle school, and we would have like a sleepover and bring our laptops, and we had this really elaborate scheme set up where one person would be in the bank and they'd find a mark, and then they'd start saying like, oh, selling, blah blah blah, and it's just like this obscure item, and then no one knows how much it's worth. They're like selling this much, and it's like 400,000 each, and so everyone would kind of know they're there, whatever. And then we'd have another person on an account with a high level character or with a name of what you would assume to be a high level character, randomly whisper the mark and say, "Hey, I'm looking to buy whatever that specific item is," and then you'd offer to buy it for way higher than the value that's being sold for.
What a grift.
That's
And
that's the oldest con in the book, but you just did it in RuneScape.
There's a
Yeah.
name for that, right? For that specific.
I'm sure
that
there is.
specific trick. Yeah.
I'm not sure what the. I mean, it worked like a charm. Like I think there's only one time that someone caught on, and the person catching on was just like, "Oh, I don't have any, but this guy at the bank has some for cheaper." And we were like, "Thank you, kind soul." And we were like, "All right, abort that." And then we felt bad and we stopped doing it. I think actually we were like, "Oh, there are good people in this game." But yeah, because it feels like you're just like taking advantage of someone trying to make a quick buck. So you're like, it's all right. I'll just make a quick buck off them. But yeah, that was the dark side of my my edgy teen years in online.
That's fine. It taught you street
what's
smarts.
funny is
It did. I
Street smarts. Except it's in
the
RuneScape.
street smarts of Falador. Yeah, exactly.
the RuneScape like scam games have gotten so like crazy complicated over the years too.
Yeah.
Like they've reached like unbelievable levels of just ridiculousness, and it's if you just don't want to participate because no matter what happens, somehow you're going to get scammed if you try like to
Really?
interact with any of those people.
Do you have an example?
They do crazy. There's one that I read about. Where like they have a teleport that takes you to the wilderness, like a tab, and what they do is they say, "Oh, I have a tele other tab, like teleport other person tab, but I don't have a teleport tab. Did you trade this to me and teleport me to the wilderness?" And when they click it to teleport the other person, it just teleports
sends
them,
them.
and then they get ganked by like 20 people.
Oh
like-
no!
That's great. Does it not say on it that it's like teleport
It
self?
does, but like
They just don't
it's
read
just
it?
kind of a trust thing
Yeah.
where they say it does. They say it's a tele other tab. You just believe them, and then you don't check, and then you get teleported to the wilderness and die.
Oh my god.
There's
That's a funny
like
one.
hundreds of these scams. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's really funny, but I luckily I've never actually been scammed in RuneScape, so we're all good.
And there were some pretty legendary trolls. Like Ultima Online was kind of my troll ground. Some I don't know. We don't need to necessarily share infinite anecdotes about it, but the fun thing is like if you owned a residence, you could lock the door, and then nobody else could unlock it but you. So you can like. There was like you would pretend to be wounded or something, and then the second somebody chased you into your house, you just lock the door and then teleport out, and then they'd be stuck there forever. And then you could come and like you could come and like yell at them and taunt them through the windows and stuff. It was fantastic. You basically have your own little like person in a jar in the basement.
Oh my god.
Oh no!
Those like the freedom of those games expose some interesting sociology aspects of the human race. Especially like you have like 12 and 14-year-olds like running scams on each other. Man, it's great.
Yeah, it's the Wild West, man. There's no parent supervision. You just got to figure it out. Like, even if you were to explain to your parent, "Oh yeah, I got scammed in RuneScape, and here's how," they'd be like, "This, eyes go blank." They're like, "What you bought what from who at a bank worth what, and then you got messaged by who?" Like, there's no way you can describe. It's just a personal like hell or vendetta. This mark in your brain that you've got to live with. I learned that scam because someone tried it on me, and I like figured it out while they were doing it. And then instead of like being angry, I was like, "Wait a minute, that's so smart!" And then I like did it myself. It's just how they convert people.
Did you ever hear about the moderator who worked at Jagex who was running scams?
No,
And, like,
what?
So there's a guy. His name is Mod Jed. I believe he's got an arrest warrant out now because like he was like basically embezzling the game's currency and then reselling it by like giving out IP addresses for DDoSing. Like basically like he was the inside guy for like a huge scam group.
That is incredible.
And like he got fired, and like I think there's a warrant out for his arrest or something
Oh my
now.
God.
And like
Wait,
it's a hilarious story if you read into
he
it.
could get arrested for something he was doing in RuneScape?
Yeah, embezzling virtual currency is essentially what he was doing.
But like also as a representative of the company, I imagine that's the bigger.
Yeah, he
crime.
worked there.
Yeah,
He was
so,
like-
like he
he
was like one of
utilized
their,
his
like, big
position.
dudes.
Yeah, that's insane, dude. There's so many amazing stories on the internet that are so like neat. Like they're so niche, but also once you understand all the different factors in it, it's just I love it. I love it so much.
Yep. Super interesting. Like, we live in a world where virtual game currency is worth actual dollar amounts, and like stuff like that can happen.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Cool. I'm just I kind of, it's funny, I knew that this was that reverse engineering goes with a lot of different things besides modding, but I didn't realize that there would be so much more to it in terms of like cheats and stuff like that. That I feel like everybody sort of dived into that world at least a little bit, where you're like, because I think at first you feel like it's not permanent because it's in a video game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which in some cases it's not, but I mean, like, but in other cases, actually is very permanent.
Yeah, it's an interesting like psychological effect, right? Because you can convince yourself, you can rationalize it, especially when you're a kid. Like, oh, it's not real, it's a video game. But like, you really did screw over that person. You really did ruin their day, or like, take something that was worth many hours of their time and their property in some way, right? And that, like, that's a thing that as a kid you might not be comfortable with, so you find ways to rationalize it. Until you're older, and then you're like, wait a minute, no, that was actually really shitty that I did that.
Yeah. Actually, Inferno, another question for you about kind of where you take your inspiration. Are there other mods or other modders that you follow, maybe even like popular modders that you've seen that they'll release a mod and you're like, holy shit, that's such a great idea. Like, why didn't I think of that? Or just people that you look to for inspiration in the modding community?
Definitely Hyper. He's the guy. He does silly, like, crazy reloading. He's a really good animator who does silly things with it.
Okay.
He works for, like, I think he works for, what was it, like Titanfall 2 developer?
Oh, Respawn?
One of those.
He works for Respawn?
I don't remember which one it was. He works for, like, some big company now, though. He does, like, real stuff.
Oh, cool.
There's a guy I'm following who's working on a Dark Souls 2 overhaul mod that I'm really interested in. His name's Stade3D. He's been posting like screenshots of it every few weeks or so. He's like, you remember how Dark Souls 2 was originally gonna be really dark and like have like crazy lighting? Mm-hmm. He's like restoring that into the game very slowly.
Cool.
And it looks great. I'm super excited for that for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. Anybody else that you've been like, even maybe just like following along on their career and kind of seeing where they're going?
I'm trying to think. Like, I'm sure there is, but I'm just not placing anything right now.
That's fine. The story that I've always heard, and I don't actually know if all of it is true, but the guys that made the Counter-Strike mod for Half-Life, they were like immediately hired by Valve, and then obviously they made they turned it into a full video game. That's the kind of thing that I was thinking about. Like, I wasn't sure if there was anybody that over the last 10, 15 years. You've watched them go from just somebody who was modding occasionally to working at a developer or, making their own video games.
The guy I was talking about before, a guy who works at 343, I guess he won't care. He goes by Cornman.
Okay.
He was a moderator. He did a bunch of development for Halo, and he was hired and works for 343 now.
Cool.
And he's done cool stuff. He's done some really cool stuff in his career.
That's great.
Rad.
I respect that guy.
Yeah.
Have you? Sorry, go ahead.
That's all.
Have you looked, or are you inspired much by like the Source filmmaker community? Because when those tools first came out, I remember I was like the end of high school, and I dove into it, and was really fascinated with like all the potential of it. I know it's more on the animation side, but it also seems to factor in so many different kind of mods and external assets that you can import into a game engine. That I always wonder if it's if it's on the radar of modders such as yourself.
Hey, real quick, Kraken, can we stop the car for a second?
Yeah.
I want to get into one of these side seats, get a little bit of a different camera angle here.
You want to drive? Oh. I've been driving the whole time. So.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. I'm just. Can you get into any of these seats? Wait.
You can't get into the ones. There's like only a limited number of seats in a vehicle, so the front seats are the ones that.
Oh, okay. I was hoping I could ride at the very back.
Yeah, unfortunately, like you can have seats back there, but they're like scripted seats, and they don't. They're really painful to set up.
Okay. All right. I'm good. Sorry. Go. Oh shoot! I think I distracted so thoroughly. My bad. Continue.
But you were saying, what were you saying?
It was the Source filmmaker and how that.
Oh yes. I've looked at it before. It's super interesting. I love that it exists, but it's I'm not really familiar with Source. Source is one of those things I've barely ever touched. So I've not looked into it much.
Yeah.
Like, I get what it is. It's like, I think it's wonderful that it exists because it allows like so many wonderful animations have come from it. Mm-hmm. There was someone did like the JoJo Part 5 intro with TF2 characters like yesterday.
Yeah.
Even. And that was wonderful to watch. So
I just wonder because like I think some of the best products that I've seen or been a part of online have come from collaborations with other creators that have complementary skills, and especially if you're looking for an animator or someone that that is interested in 3D animation. I feel like you'd probably find a lot of really talented people in the SFM community. So I don't know if that's a thing. It's hard to know kind of how to get involved with a community like that. But just I guess by starting and like watching a bunch of people, and I don't know if you've found inspiration or individual creators that you like their work, but there might be a connection there if you're interested.
Yeah, it's tough to. I don't know. There's definitely some people I'd like to work with, but I'm like drawing a blank right now for some reason. I'd have to like go.
Yeah, I'm not putting you on the spot. I just saying that like I don't know. I wonder if you've done that before, like reaching out to a creator because you like their work.
Oh yeah, actually, I've tried a few times. Yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten a response though.
I mean, that's what I did with you, bud. I reached out to you on Twitter and I was like, "Hey, I like what you've done a lot, and would like to chat if you wanted to."
I think that worked so well because I knew who you were already. Like I was like, yeah, I've seen your videos before. I've known who you were since like 2010 or something like that. So that was kind of surprising to me in the first place.
Well, I got lucky then, but I think there's other creators out there that that are open to that as well, or I'd like to hope so, because I think things are always better when we work together. It sounds like a song.
No, Craig is right. I actually wholeheartedly agree, Craig, and I feel like that's something that even because I actually get that a lot, where somebody will reach out to me and be like, "Hey, man, like, do you want to do this? Or you want to do that, or whatever?" And it's not always as simple as just like reaching out and be like, "Hey, do you want to play a video game with me?" But sometimes it can be like, "I've got this crazy idea where blank and blank and blank," and it's like, well, that might be the right time for that idea. You never know.
Speaking of which, we have officially arrived.
Gotta
back
stretch
at
my
Red
legs.
Team base. Yeah, let's
get some corn nuts and Diet Dr. Pepper.
It really does feel like we just went on a road trip. That was really
this
was
original
wholesome.
This desert bus map, the one that I drove back in November. That one was so much more boring than this one. This one is so much better, Inferno. You have improved it so much.
Yeah, that's what a ton of 3D modeling will do when you actually like try to build a full desert instead of just copy pasting a road infinitely.
Yeah.
All right, and with this, we shall conclude the podcast on the completion of this flag. Any final words? The two of you, three of you, Bruce in the sky.
How about? Oh, I was gonna...
You tried. He tried to kill me.
Oh, he tried to kill you.
Yeah. I plant the flag.
I was hoping you wouldn't turn. I was like...
I have final words. It's patreon.com/InfernoPlus. And then what's your YouTube channel, Inferno?
It's just youtube.com/InfernoPlus, I think.
Awesome. Okay. Cool.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and having this chat. I don't know about you guys, but I had a great time.
Yes, that was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
I don't trust this. Kraken's sizing me up right now. Ah, damn it! I couldn't find my grenade button either. Oh, I hit every button on my keyboard. I couldn't find it.
It's just panic.
Yeah.
All right. Ugh. All right. I think we'll wrap it up there.
Me. You gave me the old sticky Kraken. God damn it!
The old sticky Kraken.
How could you do that to me?
Thanks again, Inferno. Everyone, go check him out on YouTube and Patreon if you want to see more crazy shit like what we just experienced for the last hour and a half.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Cool.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.
All right. Bye, everybody.